So go ahead and check to see that if you did these factoring problems correctly, and then we'll move on to the next page. All right. So now, this was going to be a little bit different. All right, this kind of factoring, you notice that the first term isn't a quadratic. It isn't an x squared term. This kind of factoring, the first thing we're going to look for is to see if there is a common factor in every single one of these terms. In other words, what goes into every single one of these terms here? Well, let's see, we've got a 3 and minus 18 and a plus 24. 3 goes into all of those. Those are all divisible by 3. So I know that a 3 is a common factor for all three of these. They also, let's see, this one's x cubed, x squared, and x. They all have at least one x in there, and so actually I can factor out one x. And what happens when I do that, when I factor out an x, I'm left with, so if I have 3x cubed, and I factored out a 3, I'm left with 1. And I have x cubed, and I factor out 1x. Well, I had 3 x's, and I factored 1 out. That leaves me still with 2 x's, or x squared. All right, now let's see the second one. I factored out a 3x out of a minus 18x squared. Well, 3 out of minus 18, if basically you're dividing out by a 3, what am I left with? A minus 6. And an x squared, I factored out 1x. There were 2 x's there at the beginning. I factored 1 out. I still have 1x left. All right, last one here. 3 goes into 24 8 times, and the x goes into x there once. So I factored out, there was 1x, I factored 1 out, it's gone. And so there I have it. I factored out a 3x, which was something, this is called factoring out a common term from all, in this case, all three, and with the rest are still in parentheses. So now I have a 3x times this trinomial. Now sometimes this is, you're done, and this isn't factorable, but if it is still factorable, and this is actually one of the ones that we did previously, I can set this up like a binomial here as well. What goes into x times x gives me x squared. Multiply two numbers that give me plus 8, a minus 4, and a minus 2. And that's going, now I check by multiplying here. I'm actually going to multiply this part here later, that 3x. I'm going to do this since there's 3 things being multiplied by here, actually 4, 3 times x minus 4 times x minus 2. But I'm going to first do the x minus 4 times the x minus 2. That gives me x squared minus 2x minus 4x plus 8, which is, I just need to simplify that, x squared minus 2x minus 6x plus 8. And I can, oops, I did that wrong. It should be, sorry, just x squared minus 6x plus 8. Minus 6x plus 8. All right, and now I can multiply the 3x through the whole thing. 3x times x squared gives me 3x cubed. 3x times minus 6x gives me minus 18. I've got an x and another x. That gives me x squared when they're multiplied. And then 3x times 8 is plus 24x. Is that what I started off with? Yes, it is. All right, let's try to do one more of these together, and then I'll let you finish off the page. All right, what goes into all of these terms? We've got a 2, and we've got some x's. 2, 6, and 4. Well, 2 goes into all of them, so I'm going to factor out a 2. What goes into x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, and x squared? Well, they have not just one x in common, but 2 x's in common. In other words, an x squared that can be factored out. And when I factor out a 2x squared from this term, the 2's gone, and we've taken away an x, 2 x's out of the 4. We're left with still an x squared, still 2 of the x's. Out of a 6x cubed, we have 2 goes into 6 3 times, and x squared times what gives me x cubed? Well, x. So in other words, if I take away 2 of those x's, I'm left with 1x there. And I'm going to take away 2 goes into 4 twice, and x squared goes into x squared, and there's no x's left there. All right, and then so I can continue factoring this one if it is factorable, and this one is x plus, we got x times x. What 2 is just basically has to be 2 times 1. Could be a minus 2 or positive, but this is positive. And now I check by multiplying my answers. I'll start off again with this first part here, multiplying this into a trinomial, x squared plus x plus 2x plus 2, which is x squared plus 3x plus 2. And then I multiply the 2x into the whole parentheses. 2x times x squared is 2x cubed. 2x times plus 3x is plus 6x squared. Again, the x to the first, you multiply that, you add the exponents to get x squared. 2x times plus 2 gives me a plus 4x. Does that work? No. Oh, I didn't actually multiply the x squared through. That's why. I wrote that wrong. So let's try that again. So that's why we check it and make sure that it works. All right. So now I multiply this. We get 2x to the fourth plus 6x cubed plus 4x squared. Now you try to do all of those on your own, and then we'll check them afterwards.